welcome to Chapter 4. In Chapter 4, we're going to be talking about quadratic equations. Quadratic, and these are equations with x squared. The standard form for a quadratic equation is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And what quadratic equations look like are something like this. It's almost like an absolute value, but it's curved instead. And this is what's known as a parabola. And just like any other equation, the parabola can be stretched steeper, it can be wider, it can have its vertex at the origin, like this one. This is the vertex. Or the vertex can be somewhere else. It can be flipped upside down, or it can be facing up, like this one. And I'll show you how to make those distinctions. Alright, we have an equation for a random parabola here, y equals 2x squared plus 3x minus 2. To graph this, you're going to need to first find the vertex. And the vertex, in order to find the vertex, has two coordinates, the x-coordinate and the y-coordinate. The x-coordinate is negative b divided by 2a. Remember we said before the equation was ax squared plus bx plus c. So you're going to plug in this b over 2a and it's going to be negative. And then once you find out what that is, you'll plug that number back in to find the y-coordinate for the vertex. So we're going to write f of negative b over 2a because it's going to be whatever we get when we plug that answer back in. So for this first one, it's negative b over 2a. We're going to plug that in. So it's going to be negative 3 divided by 2 times 2, because a is 2. So it's going to be negative 3 over 4. It's going to be the x-coordinate. And the y-coordinate is going to be what the equation equals when we plug in negative 3/4. So I chose one that gives an x-coordinate of negative 3/4 to make this a little more challenging. We'll go ahead and plug that back in to find the y-coordinate. So we have 2 times negative 3/4. Just plug it back into the original equation, squared, plus 3 times negative 3/4 minus 2. So negative 3/4 times negative 3/4 is going to be positive 9 over 16 times 2 plus, or actually it's going to be minus, since it's a positive times negative. So minus 9 over 4 minus 2. We can cancel here, this 2 and the 16, we can cross multiply. So we have 9 over 8 minus 9 over 4 minus 9 over 2. And we're almost done, but we're going to need to change this 9/4 so we can subtract those fractions. So for the 9/4, we're just going to multiply the top and bottom by 2. So we have 9 over 8. 9 over 8 minus 18 over 8 minus 2. We have negative 9/8 minus 2. And once again, we're going to have to change the 2 to have a denominator of 8. So all we're going to do is multiply the top and bottom by 8. So 8 over 8. That's going to give us 16 over 8, which will end up being negative 25/8. So the answer for the vertex, after all that work, is negative 3/4 for the x-coordinate. When you plug that back in, you're going to get negative 25 over 8 for the y-coordinate. That's the vertex. There are another two things that the vertex will tell you, or this graph can tell you. The first thing is the axis of symmetry. So if you're picturing this thing on a graph, it has its vertex at negative 3/4, negative 25 over 8, which is about down here. And then that's going to be the vertex, and we can look at the a term to decide if this thing's going to open up or open down. If it's positive, it's going to open up. If it's negative, it's going to open down. So this graph is going to open up because this a term is positive. So then if we want to graph it, we're just going to plug in some points close to that to get the values to graph. So we'll just try a couple points to see what this graph looks like. We're going to try, let's say, 0 for x. That one's going to be easy. Plug in 0 for everything. And when you plug in 0 for all the x's, you're going to get negative 2 for the y. So 0, -2 is a point on the graph. Let's also just plug in -2, see what happens. I'm just picking points to the left and the right of the vertex for this xy grid. So that's going to be -2 squared, 4 times 2. So we're going to have 8 minus 6 minus 2. So that's going to be 0. So we can kind of get an idea of what this graph is going to look like. When I make this grid, it's going to be a parabola that goes up like this. I'm also going to show you how to find the axis of symmetry. And that's the axis of symmetry is this line that cuts the entire graph in half. So the axis of symmetry is the same exact thing as the x-coordinate of the vertex. That's the axis of symmetry. We would just write x equals -3/4, and we would call that the axis of symmetry.